Donald Trump, in a series of tweets, shared what he believes happened with the popular vote during the general election. Now, as many of you already know, Hillary Clinton is set to beat Donald Trump by an estimated 2 million in the popular vote. However, Donald Trump doesn't believe that's the case. He thinks that voter fraud has played a huge role in the fact that he won the Electoral College but did not win the popular vote. So in his first tweet on this matter, he says the following: in addition to winning the Electoral College in a landslide, I won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally.
Wrong.
Now, as you can tell, that tweet not only misses a period at the end of the sentence, it also misses any type of citation indicating that there's evidence of voter fraud. In fact, Trump furthered the accusation on Sunday night by saying in a subsequent tweet that there was serious voter fraud in Virginia, New Hampshire, and California. There was no evidence of that. Okay, don't take my word for it. Don't take our word for it. Take the fact-checking website's word for it. The fact-checking websites PolitiFact, factcheck.org, and Snopes have all ruled that there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. In fact, he got the voter fraud idea from his friend Alex Jones, who's a nut job and a conspiracy theorist. So that was what his information, or where his information came from.
Yeah, all the mainstream press, of course. So they want facts and evidence. Well, no, that's not true. The things we just randomly say are true, right?
Wrong.
Okay, so where did he actually get this idea that 3 million votes were cast illegally by illegal aliens? From
Sarabies!
Okay, no. Let's break this down. Number one, great! If you think that there were millions of votes cast illegally and unfairly, well, then we got to have a recount, don't we?
Let's do a recount.
Well, we got to do a recount. In fact, maybe Trump should pay for the recount. I mean, he's worried about all these people who... I want to find out if there were millions of votes cast inappropriately. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. I want to find out. If there was illegal aliens, as you guys called them, undocumented immigrants, whatever you want to call them, they cast votes, I want to find out. Mm-hmm. If there was hacking of a system, you know, the Russians hacked into Arizona and Illinois' voting system in August, okay, of this year. So if there was hacking, I want to find out. If there was a wrong vote count, I want to find out. Luckily for us, President-elect Trump also wants to find out. Great, let's have a recount. Right now, Jill Stein and the Green Party, in a brilliant move, has raised enough money for a recount in the Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, and they've already begun that. Pennsylvania's next, and then Michigan. I think we should recount Florida too. And so there's all these talking points going around. Oh God, the press loves Republican talking points. Mm-hmm. So the minute that they had Republican talking points, this was before Trump made his really, really stupid comments here. Okay, they were like, oh, this is going to disturb the Republic. Why would recounting disturb anything, let alone the Republic? Well, it's going to be divisive. How is counting divisive? So they put all these things out there like, you're questioning the vote. I'm not questioning the vote. I'm counting the vote.
Yeah.
It would make it actually more reliable, not less reliable.
Trump can never make up his mind about anything, right? So on one hand, he says there's the voter fraud issue. On the other hand, he's very angry at the recount effort. And so it's just funny how he contradicts himself nonstop on the same social media platform. But look, I think the recount effort is going to be a fruitless effort, to be honest with you. I don't think that it's going to change anything. Hillary Clinton's camp doesn't believe it's going to change anything. They said that they'll support it, but they don't think it's going to make a difference. And I agree with them on that.
So look, here's the thing. There's no evidence. And so I want to be clear about what that means. So some people, of course, are convinced that if you do a recount, it'll overturn the election. How they know that, I have no idea, right? Some are convinced that it won't change the vote at all. Now, they have some evidence for that because the margins are not large enough if things went normal, right? On the issue of hacking, that seems like it would be improbable because it's a lot of machines to hack in a lot of different states run by Republicans and Democrats. On the other hand, the Russians are pretty good at it, and they did hack into Arizona and Pennsylvania. Do I think it's likely that happened? No, I don't. I think it's unlikely. But we don't know until we just check a little bit. And in fact, that little bit of checking probably won't be able to tell us either. But there's just no harm in it. Mm-hmm. So, it's going to cost a lot of money. No, they already paid for it. Taxpayers. No, there's no taxpayers. people already volunteered to give their own hard-earned money to pay for the recount. So that is a non-issue. So, and then when it comes to this, look, you look further into it, and the fact checkers did. Okay, where the hell did Alex Jones get this crazy idea on the Republican side that 3 million people had voted illegally? Well, they find out that it's this guy named Greg Phillips. So now Greg Phillips apparently writes for or runs votefraud.org. So that's where it first came from.
Okay.
In a series of tweets. So the reporters are like, oh, okay, great. I'll give you this guy's resume in a second. He's worked as a legit guy in Republican politics. So they're like, okay, Greg, that's a really interesting story. So what's your data? Like, where did you said you did a tabulation of some sort. Can you share that? And he's like, no, of course not. I will share. I've already done the calculation within 5 days of the election to know that 3 million. How did you find 3 million illegal votes within 5 days?
He sounds like a very credible source.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're talking with him and trying to, figure this all out.
So every time a journalist asks, he's like, no, I won't share any information. I won't give you one shred of evidence. I won't give you one fact to support it. It's just me and my tweet. So now, it's one thing to have this fringe guy, right? Mm-hmm. But you got to understand something. The Republican Party is the fringe. Donald Trump won. He reads InfoWars. Like Alex Jones will take that as an advertisement and love it, et cetera. But Alex Jones is a certified lunatic. He believes things like,
it is an alien force, not of this world.
Like when he talks, by the way, that's not about illegal aliens. That's about aliens. In a rant that he did about who actually controls the world. I don't know, maybe it was 3 million illegal aliens who voted. But Trump, the president-elect, is taking this guy seriously and making it a national issue because Alex Jones retweeted another lunatic. The lunatics are running the asylum. It's one thing on the recount side to say, hey, let's make sure, and no conclusions without evidence. Of course, right? Mm-hmm. It's another thing on the other side to be like, I don't need no stinking evidence. I got a tweet here from a conservative. Half the conservative publications in the country have already run with it as if it's a fact, with no evidence at all.
It's insane, I know. Look, I think that all of the craziness that's happening right now with this election can either be a teachable moment, right, for those who bought into the conspiracy theories and believe whatever Alex Jones says, while he's trying to sell you like erectile dysfunction pills in the beginning of every video. But nonetheless, there's that. But I think that at this point, for me personally, and I'm not saying that this is the way that anyone else needs to think or should think, I've already accepted the fact that this is the situation that we have to deal with, right? A Trump presidency supported by conspiracy theorists, and we're going to go through some pretty difficult times if things play out the way that I predict they're going to play out. But if they do, it could be a teachable moment for the American electorate, and hopefully they learn from our mistakes. Or if it doesn't go as we expect, and he ends up being a great president, which I doubt, right? Then that'll be good too. Like, to be honest with you, I'm not hoping that Trump fails. I'm not hoping that Trump does terrible things to people in the country. He's elected. I'm hoping that he actually proves me wrong and does good things, right? Because I'm not going to root against anyone in the country, even if I was really angry with them on election night, right? But at the same time, if things do go badly, this is a time for us to learn and to not take nut jobs like Alex Jones seriously, ever.
So look, I'm happy to have him spend $1 trillion in infrastructure. I'm happy that he's not doing TPP for now. So yeah, sure, of course, if he does the right things, we'll tell you. I'm telling you right now, he's saying he's killing TPP. Wonderful, okay? Now, when you have a lunatic running the country, it is not going to turn out well. I would be shocked. We will wait for the evidence to come in. But one piece of evidence came in today. He believes in insane conspiracy theories and does not bother to fact check at all.
But you know why he believes it, Cenk? Because this is not about being president for him. This is about winning for him, right? So he wins the Electoral College, but for someone like Trump, that's not enough. This was a vanity project, an ego project for him, right? And so reading these reports that keep coming out about how Hillary Clinton has beaten Trump with more than 1 million popular votes, and then all of a sudden it increases, and now it's nearly 2 million popular votes. That drives him nuts. That's why he's willing to believe anything and anyone, even if it's a lunatic.
Yeah. And finally, what did Greg Phillips do in the past? He was former finance director of the Alabama Republican Party. He served as executive director of the Mississippi Republican Party, and he was the managing director of a super PAC, the super PAC, for Newt Gingrich when he ran in 2012. I give you that background because it's not that you have a fringe guy who believes this stuff. The Republican Party is fringe. I don't mean that in terms of their votes. They won the Electoral College. I mean that in terms of their ideas. I mean, you have these guys who are nut jobs who don't live in the reality-based world, who are significant parts of the Republican Party infrastructure. The guy who ran Newt Gingrich's super PAC, Newt almost won in 2012. Really important roles in Alabama, Mississippi Republican Party, and cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That's who the Republican Party is. That's why it's not surprising that they nominated Trump and is now their standard bearer. The lunatics have taken over the asylum.